Bon Beanie, everybody. Here's another throwback video from my old YouTube channel. This one of my favorite places. This is all about snorkeling in Chankanaab in Cozumel, Mexico. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Hello everyone, and welcome to beautiful Cozumel, Mexico. We're here today at Chankanaab National Park, one of our favorite excursions to take in Cozumel, Mexico. This is a beautiful park, and what we like to do is we like to get here before everyone else gets here. Right now I'm the only one in the water, and the way you do that is to just go and get a cab from the cruise port. It's just like a 10-minute ride. Cost us $14 for two people to go one way, and then you pay like $21 or so to get into the park, and you're the only one here, except of course for the people that work here and all these fish. And these fish were very anxious to see me. They thought I had food. Sorry guys, I don't have any food, but I'm glad to see them. So what I want to do is give you guys an overview of what it's like to go to Chankanaab National Park and snorkel, and also point out some of the really cool sea life here along the way. For example, these big guys swimming by here are called Bermuda chub, or sometimes sea bream. There goes one there. Those little barred guys are called sergeant majors. We'll see a lot more of them. So come with me as we explore Chankanaab National Park. Chankanaab is not a huge coral reef, but there are some big coral heads spread out throughout the park, and these are three of the big ones right here. They sit in about 21, 22 feet of water. At least that's what the depth was when I was here. That could vary, I suppose, the tide, things like that. There's a lot of marine life here, like these three spiny lobsters who are saying hello, hello. And then we just kind of cruise around here. You'll see a lot of grunts here as well, and quite a few parrotfish, especially stoplight parrotfish on this coral head. Now I have to tell you that I was filming this with a GoPro, and some of the footage I was using the red filter, and then some of it I wasn't. This one was one where I was using the red filter, and I realized that it really wasn't helping a whole lot, so I ended up taking it off. So for any of you that are interested in knowing what it's like, for me it didn't work out too well. Not in this experience anyway. I've had better luck with it on scuba dives. One of the things that I really enjoy about Chankanaab is that it does have a little bit of depth. I like to swim underwater, swim around 20, 30 feet underwater is where I like to be. But if you're a person that doesn't like to do that, if you like to stay just at the surface, don't worry. You won't be able to see super well from this area. You'll still be seeing some stuff, but there's some shallow areas as well. Now, there's another spiny lobster, and right there is a Graysby sitting on the rock. Kind of swim out. I think I might have scared him a little bit. Sorry, Mr. Graysby. There's another, like I said, another spiny lobster. If you like lobster, there's a lot. There was a squirrelfish, I believe, down there. And around these big coral heads, you'll also see just some sparse areas with smaller coral heads. That's what we have here. It looks like another grouper of some sort down there. And also some grass flats. So you get a good variety of stuff that you can find hanging out in these different areas. Did I mention there's a few spiny lobsters here? Because there's a few spiny lobsters here. Quite a few. Actually, these are probably three that you've already seen. But they were everywhere. Every crevice that you looked into, there they were. Now here's one of the grass flat areas. This is again deeper water, but there are a ton of things out here, like these conchs. There were quite a few of these. You see me picking one up here, just to, you can see. I believe it's a queen conch. I think these are queen conchs. There's another one there, and they were literally peppered all over this grass flat. So it's pretty exciting. There's a few more down here, which you're going to see in just a second. Yeah, just conchs everywhere. So if you're a seafood aficionado, well, there's lobster and conch everywhere. Now this guy is not something that hopefully many of you eat, but this was a pretty impressive animal. This is a southern stingray that I found hanging out on the grass flat. Average-sized southern stingray who let me get fairly close to it within reason, and then swam off a little bit, just kind of cruising around on the grass flats. So don't forget to check the grass flats. If you're there, don't think that everything is at the coral reef, because there's a lot of life in other areas as well. In fact, here's another stingray, a different species. This is a yellow stingray. It's one of my favorite species of stingray, and if you're not familiar with them, you'll see why. They're beautiful animals. Conk's moving around. I actually saw quite a few of these at this park, which was pretty awesome. I don't think I've ever seen them here before, but there were definitely quite a few here today, which is a pretty neat discovery. There's also a lot of structures that they've sunk at Chankanaab. There are some statues. There are a couple of floating platforms, so you can rest if you want to do that. Here is, you can see a statue off in the distance. I think that's like a Christ statue or something. This is just a little platform that's got one of the floating platforms attached to it, and you'll find a lot of juvenile fish hanging out in areas like this. That's a little juvenile blue tang, and these look like some baby cottonwicks and some other things, various babies swimming around there as well. But anywhere you go, when you find a structure like that, a lot of times you're gonna find these juvenile fish, which can be a lot of fun if you're like me and you just want to try and identify everything. So I spend a lot of time taking pictures, videoing, and then trying to figure out what I saw. I know a lot of them, but a lot of them I have to look up. So now here's that statue. I think it's supposed to be, like I said, a statue of Christ or something like that. And this is in, I believe, about 22 feet of water, which you're going to see in just a second, because I'm going to show you the neat depth gauge I have on my watch. There we go, just kind of go down to the bottom. .6 feet. There we go. And then we're going to head back up. There we go. So it's kind of neat snorkeling around these different statues. They've got some sort of Christian-based ones, but they've also got some Mayan statues that are sunk down here. So it's kind of cool. It's like an art museum underwater or something. There were a lot of barracuda there in the water before people got in, and once there were a lot of swimmers out there, I still saw barracuda, but not as many as before. So these are all some juvenile barracuda hanging out here. And then, I don't know if you saw this school, but you're about to see this huge school of grunt. There's a couple different species here, and every time I've been to Chankanaab, you see these massive schools of grunts hanging out, and you can just swim down. And if you don't go too fast, you can usually just kind of hang out with them. They'll sort of accept you and let you just kind of hover there for a minute. Most of these look like they are white grunt or blue striped grunt hanging out here. Get a little bit better view. There's probably one or two other species mixed in. Well, there's a sergeant major swimming through, but they are everywhere, so that's not that unusual. Come down now. One of these, I think the first one was with the red filter, and this one's not. So it is a little bit bluer, and it works a little better in this deeper water. Again, this is in like 20 feet of water. There's also some anemones there, some sea anemones hanging out there. So yeah, pretty cool. Lots of stuff to see at Chankanaab. Oh, hello. The obligatory snorkeling selfie. Yes, I am a dork. By the way, that snorkel is one I had to purchase here for $5 because I brought everything with me except for my snorkel. I've never forgotten anything like that before. I had to buy a cheap $5 snorkel, which did the job. Don't know how many more times I'll use it, but hey, it worked for today. And surprise, another spiny lobster. Some damsels hanging out in there as well. And of course the coral, I haven't really talked about the coral. There are some hard corals here, sponges, and of course you saw the gorgonia and the sea fan. It's a lot of soft corals as well. And most of it looked fairly healthy. I mean, I did see some dead spots and things like that. Now, one of the cool things about Chankanaab is that there are these limestone caves from, I'm sure, old coral reefs and stuff like that. And some of them you can swim into. Just be careful that you don't get stuck inside of them. But this one you can swim all the way through, which is a lot of fun to do. And I was talking, when I bought my snorkel, I was talking to the guys at their dive shack, and they were telling me that there is a cave system that they will take divers through that, according to them, has stalactites and stalagmites and the whole bit. But that would be kind of cool. I'm not a cave diver and normally have no interest in cave diving, but that would be kind of cool if it wasn't void of life and extremely dangerous. Those are two things that I don't look for in a dive, personally. Now this is a shallower area, so you're not going to see as much hard coral here. There are bits and pieces of hard coral, a lot of juvenile fish, wrasse and grunts, damsels, things like that, and a lot of these gorgonian soft corals spread out all around here. A lot of algae growing and just a lot of little life. Now here is an initial phase of the stoplight parrotfish. So if you're not familiar with parrotfish, they are one of the fish that are basically hermaphrodites, and they're all females until one of them needs to be a male, and then they will change when they need to into that male. And so most parrotfish have a juvenile phase, the initial phase, and then what they call the terminal phase, and sometimes they even have multiple juvenile phases. So, and they look sometimes completely different, so it can be a challenge if you're trying to ID these species out in a coral reef, that sort of thing, because there are quite a few different species of parrotfish as well. Stoplight parrots are one of my favorites. Now, one of the things I saw a ton of here, I mentioned, were the sergeant majors, but there are some adorable little baby sergeant majors, not these guys right here above. They are adorable, but you'll see them throughout here, just these little tiny black, yellow, and white fish. They have the black bars going up and down. Just gorgeous little cuties. So don't forget, when you're any place where there's a coral reef, to pay attention to these shallow little nooks and crannies, even though there's not coral there, because this thing is covered with living creatures. And I go to some of these places sometimes, and people see me staring at what they think is just a wall, and I come up and they're like, "What are you looking at?" And I'm like, What am I not looking at? There's so much to see. You just have to take a little time and investigate it and just check it out. Now, it's a little treacherous here because there's waves pushing you into this, but it wasn't bad. It was pretty easy to navigate through this. You don't ever, of course, want to touch coral because that can be deadly to the coral. It can be crushing. But you also don't want to touch coral because sometimes you touch something called fire coral, and that can be very painful. So you want to try and avoid touching this stuff as much as possible. If you absolutely have to, try and find a bare spot on the rock or something like that, or if you know for sure it's algae, that you can safely and in a non-harmful way support yourself on the rock. But I try just to avoid touching it altogether, and that's what I recommend that people do. But there are a lot of nooks and crannies here, and you never know what you're going to find when you look in them. I did see some spiny urchins. I don't know that I got any good video of them. I got a couple photographs of the spiny urchins. There's another parrotfish species swimming around. And this is an interesting fish right here. This is called a lizard fish. I believe this is an inshore lizard fish for the exact species. Oh, and he got a little scared there. Which you usually see in shallow water, a lot of times in sandy areas, but he was hanging out on these rocks on the edge. Now, Chankanaab has a beach, but it's not a beach that goes into the water. Basically, they, I think, brought sand here because this is all rocky area, limestone, rocky area. And so to get into the water, what you have to do is go down one of these stairwells, which is actually really nice. They have railings, there's several of them. And if you're not super comfortable out in the deeper water, you could just hang out around these stairwells. And as long as you don't get trampled on by small children, you'll see a lot of cool things. A lot of little fish hanging out here as well, including some of the most adorable little baby sergeant majors I've ever seen. Just teeny tiny things. See if one shows up in this video. There's a sergeant major, a juvenile, but I'm talking smaller. I'm talking like the size of a dime. These things are really cute. Now, some of the longer fish you're seeing are some juvenile wrasses, yellowhead wrasse and blue wrasse. I saw a lot of bluehead wrasse there. This is a blue tang swimming here. And see what else we've got there. I think he's being chased by a surgeonfish. I saw that right. Again, this is still in that shallower water area. And this is also good if you're like me and you like to take pictures or to film, then this is great. You don't need that red filter in this area for sure, because this is like being in a swimming pool. I mean, it's really crystal clear water. I think they do make a magenta filter that is supposed to be for shallower water, but honestly, what I see here from my GoPro are the same colors I saw. Now, this little creature here hanging out on this gorgonian is called a flamingo's tongue, and this is actually, there's two of them there, one on either side. This is actually a little snail, but its shell is covered up by a tissue, live tissue, soft tissue, I should say, a layer of mantle. So it's kind of, they can pull that back, but they don't do that very often. And I don't know how well you could see that in this video, but look up flamingo tongue. I promise it's a safe Google search. At least it is so far. And you'll see how beautiful these little snails are. Now, I don't know if you spotted what I saw there, but there's another yellow stingray hanging out in here in this little mini cave. There it is. Look at that. Beautiful animals. So this was stingray, yellow stingray 2 that I saw. And didn't seem to mind that I was there. I hung out here, took some video. I came back later and it was still there, and I took some photographs of it as well, which came out pretty nice. I tried to get in this way, but it was just a little too close. Like I said, I don't like to touch the stuff here because I don't want to harm anything, although this is mostly algae, but I wanted to get a good view of it. So moving on, there are some more sergeant majors, but the ones that are all kind of brown with like tan, but they have the same markings, are actually called night sergeants. They're very similar to the sergeant major. In fact, their scientific name is one of my favorites, and this from my friend Marissa, who absolutely loves sergeant majors. They are Abidephduff saxatilis, and the night sergeants are Abidephduff taurus. So it's just a fun thing to say. So anyway, they were there, and there was a little butterfly fish. I don't know if you saw that. I believe that was a 4-eye butterfly fish swimming off to the left, and there was a surgeonfish that just swam off to the bottom right. And we're getting back into a little bit deeper water. You can see the blue color coming back, and what I'm doing is I'm heading to the other side of Chankanaab. That was a blue tang and the surgeonfish chasing behind it. Oh, and right in this little area here, there is a little banded shrimp. I don't know if you saw him very well, but he was there and hanging out. But Chankanaab also they have a sea lion show. They have dolphins and manatees. You can swim with them if you want to do that. But this is the fence on the left here. that the dolphins are on the other side of this fence. So I've never done the dolphin swim, but over here it's a little bit deeper water, and there was this massive school of tiny fish. I don't know what species they are, but there were thousands of them, as you can see, and it was just really cool to just hang out in and amongst them and just float and watch them swimming around. These pillars too are kind of interesting. If you go the other way, you're kind of getting into the edge of where they want you to be, but I saw a big black grouper hanging out down there, and some larger fish. They were mostly sea bream that I saw, but also some, I think they were crevalle jacks or some kind of jack. I didn't actually get close enough to see them. You don't want to get caught up in this fence. It's like a double layer fence, and there's holes in parts of it and stuff, so I wouldn't get too close to that, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, so this is Chankanaab. Here's another statue, has their name on it. This is a really cool place. If you like to snorkel, this is a great place because you can come when you want with the cab, and you can leave when you want with the cab. Just don't miss your ship if you're on a cruise ship. And it's got the beach there. They've also got a couple of restaurants. They're a little pricey, but it's good food. There's some rescue crocodiles they have, a little botanical trail that you'll see some Mexican spiny-tailed iguanas on. And it's just a nice atmosphere. The people will come around and offer you drinks and food a little bit, but they're not overly pushy or anything like that. So it's a really pleasant place to visit, and I would highly recommend it if you're down in Cozumel on a cruise or just visiting. It's a great place to go. Well, that's going to about wrap it up for this little adventure. I hope you guys had fun. Maybe learned to ID a couple fish or saw some things that I didn't see. If you did, you can leave a comment below, and I'll try and see if I can ID whatever that missing thing was that I didn't point out. And again, this is a great place to visit. You know, we did it through the cruise ship the first time. I'm not saying don't do that, because you can get packages for food and alcohol and things like that if you choose to do that. But you'll probably find after you've done that once, or if you're just feeling more adventurous, you're better off just booking it on your own and come enjoy this beautiful park. All right, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.